Welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast.
Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guests are Emilia and Sabina Pons, authors of Pressing On as a Tech Mom, How Tech Industry Mothers Set Goals, Define Boundaries, and Raise the Bar for Success. The book is not just about women in tech, it's about technology moms and the struggles and triumphs that they experience throughout their career, as well as allies of tech moms who want to support the movement. Okay, so that's a lot. That's interesting. Tell us about what is this movement and tell us about the book.
Sabina, you're up.
All right. Sounds good. So our book is a passion project that we come together to ultimately drive this motion forward of women who are in the workforce, typically leave during the child rearing years. And we see that statistically, and it's not just a California, Silicon Valley thing or United States thing. It's a global thing. And that was only further exacerbated by the pandemic, right? Nearly 2 million women have left the workforce. And so when we dive deeper into understanding our mission, it's ultimately to encourage women to get into tech, to stay in tech, and thrive in tech, all while also being a mom or thinking about becoming a mom.
And so what are some of the challenges that women in tech, what are women in tech currently facing?
I think it depends on where they are in their child rearing time, or whether it's they're trying to have a baby, not being able or comfortable talking about it, but needing to take that time off to support, whether it's a child, maybe an aging parent, and not having that empathy or having that person that they report to be someone that they're open to discussing. And so I think that's been one of the biggest challenges when we were in the office. I think another big one was having a safe place to be able to pump milk for your child, that you didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm yet again in another bathroom stall with a hand pump because there's no electricity for me, or I'm with a client and I have to ask for a private room that's not the cleaning room. Those kind of things are real, and it's not comfortable to talk about it. So we want to change that conversation.
And what are some of the opportunities? Like I know my wife used to work for Boston Consulting Group, and they were very good about like designating places for women to pump and whatnot. What are some of the things that companies that maybe aren't as big can do to help moms in the workforce?
I think it starts with not making people feel guilty. For me, and I talk about it in the book, I was very clear with the people who interviewed. I have to leave at 5. If I don't get my children by 6, I'm not only penalized, I get 3 strikes, and then they no longer will have my children in the facility. And then having other people at the company look down on me, or one person called me out on it and said, you get to leave every day at 5 o'clock. And me just being in awe of them, not even asking, why do you have to leave promptly at 5 every day? Maybe I take shorter lunch breaks. Maybe I'm not sitting and chatting or taking more time to do things, but come to work, focus on work, and then leave. I shouldn't have to explain myself or constantly defend myself for my actions. So I think creating a more empathetic community within the work, and understanding that everyone has a different reason for when they come in and when they leave, and not judging them on that, but rather the work they produce is really important.
Do you think that remote work helps the equation there for moms?
It can. It certainly can, but it also can hinder. And that's why we saw so many women leave the workforce during the pandemic, because there are many, many men who are true partners in crime, parents, whatever their arrangement looks like to raise children together, whether it's same-sex household or otherwise. Parents know the value of that time invested in your children. When you're also playing teacher, professor, babysitter, daycare provider, it's hard. My daughter at the time my son at the time was in kindergarten. Kindergarten doing Zoom, they were supposed to be on for 3 hours. They lasted 2. So it was really challenging for me I was a global leader of a large team, over 100 people. And I struggled. And so my husband and I try to take turns. And so in some ways now I'd like to think that as daycares are back open and as there's, some more opportunity for diversifying your village of people to help you, because we're not all bubbled up and, sequestered anymore, that it has hopefully become better. It's personally become better for me. I now have that opportunity. And I do think it's encouraged small businesses and large businesses alike to think a little bit differently about their traditional confines of, you have to be in an office. And if I don't see you performing your work every day with your bottom in your seat, then you're not getting the job done. I think
Right.
we've proven not only that we can do it, but that we can actually thrive at it. We've seen businesses perform incredibly well. Last year, we had record number of unicorn companies ever reach that $1 billion mark in technology. So I think something is changed forever here. And I think it's ultimately for the good.
Is this the first book you two have written?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
How was the process of writing a book? It seems like a daunting challenge.
I I will say exactly what Sabina said at the beginning. You have to have a passion for it.
Mhm.
And I think this is how Sabina and I met. I was at her company delivering a workshop, and it was lunchtime, and she was sitting kind of in a corner, and I was rehearsing, getting ready for the next session. And she pulled me aside and said, "Are you struggling as a mom?" or something around those lines. And that relationship that blossomed out of it, and then our calls that turned into every month or so of reconnecting, even years later, and one day us saying, let's do something to change the world. And
Mhm.
so we came up with this, like something we're really passionate about. And it has been a daunting task, but I think holding each other accountable, writing what we truly care about,
Mhm.
interviewing over 300 women globally, putting that data together, doing research that we're actually passionate about, made it less daunting. And I'm sure, Sabina, you have something to add to this too.
We're both type A driver personalities that lends itself to the corporate roles we've had in technology in our careers. So I think the time management component was the biggest, most crucial. Amelia
Mhm.
has 3 children. I have 2. We have very engaged partners in our lives and us in theirs. And the most important piece was, okay, Saturday morning, I'm going to get up early and I'm going to write for 3 hours. And
Right.
then Amelia, I'd tag her and then she'd do the same on Sunday morning. And we didn't want to step over each other. But in this world of remote work, to your earlier point, we have the collaborative tools to make that easier. The other piece that was really helpful was we were able to interview women around the world leveraging Zoom. And we
Right.
had these really deep, intimate conversations with the 12 women that we talk about in each of the chapters in our book. And they were very emotional. And it was a one-on-one. So Amelia interviewed women with whom she was friends or professional acquaintances who were
Mhm.
willing to go deep and share their very emotional stories. There were
Mhm.
tears, there was laughter, there was a lot of, I understand as well. I relate to that as well. And then sharing those video recordings with each other. And we each wrote our own respective chapters. So we were very clear about the mission. We were very clear about the time management, and then communication. Communication is huge. This was an effort separate from our quote unquote day job, separate from our other day jobs of being mothers, wives, sisters, friends, and just had to be really steadfast and hold ourselves accountable to a schedule.
Mm. Did you guys split, like, how did you, like, in terms of the not overstepping on duplicating work? Do you guys like break out the different types of chapters or information you're going to share? Like, is that how you manage that?
I'm surprised we didn't use a project plan, Sabina, because we love project plans. But in this case, we used an Excel sheet and
Oh,
did brainstorming. I read the book by Anne Janzer, The Writer's Process. It really helped me create a routine of writing and holding myself accountable to that time. And then us reiterating on those chapters, thinking about how do they go together, should we move things around. I think right until the very end, we did that. And I, like Sabina said, holding each other accountable and tagging each other once we wanted second opinion, or that we couldn't bear to look at a chapter again for a few days. Just knowing that someone else would pick up and give honest feedback really helped me.
At that moment where where words lose their meaning, that's the time to stop. I hear you. So tell us about growth molecules. You two are the principals of growth molecules. It's a consulting firm. Tell us a little bit about what you do over there.
So this company is really the product of our experience, 20 plus years for me in Silicon Valley predominantly, and in Europe, then going to get an MBA in and focusing on global competition and strategy. I just was ready to go and venture out on my own. I am very much a team player. I like playing in teams. I think being able to write a book with someone and still love them and want to be with them speaks volumes of how much I love working with people. And after about 4 months working alone, I said, you know what? I know that what I want to share with the world can't be done as quickly and as well by myself. And that's about when Sabina and I were talking, and we were having sessions monthly together, and we started thinking about writing a book. And then Sabina, I think you want to cover it from here on your journey, how we ended up working together.
I think Emilia was surprised when I called her one day and I said, you know what? This consulting thing sounds pretty cool, and I'm interested in giving it a try. The catalyst for that pivot for me was in end of 2020. The Great Reshuffle had started, and I was eager to get promoted in my current role. I was a global vice president. I owned 70% of the company's revenue responsibility, 104 people across the globe and 4 divisions, and had been there for nearly 5 years and really proven myself in the revenue retention and growth metrics and even employee retention metrics. So I ultimately said, I want a seat at the table. I want the opportunity to be part of the team that's in with the board, sharing our victories, our areas for improvement. And ultimately was met with, we love that idea. You deserve that. But we're going through a round of financial investment and we can't look too top heavy. So I
Yep.
said, you know what? I recognize that. I appreciate that. I'm still on very good terms with that whole leadership team. All my colleagues and peers, we meet for coffee monthly.
Hmm.
I just saw that as you know what? This is the time for me to take a chance on myself.
Yeah.
Emilia was willing to take a chance on me. And my husband was as well. I said, give me 1 year. And if my contribution to this family income is just null and void, then I'll get a real job in corporate. But this has been by far the most rewarding experience. Today actually marks 1 year working with growth molecules. And I hate the corporate buzzword synergy, but that's really what it is. The energy, we feed off one another and we have fun.
So for those who don't know, and I might be in the camp, even though my wife did work for a big consulting firm. What does a consulting firm actually do?
Our mission is to enable people and to help companies grow. It's really that simple. And we believe that you have to incorporate people, planet, and profit to grow as an organization. Right before this, I was moderating a roundtable with 12 leaders from around the world. And one of the biggest challenges they brought up over and over again is employee attrition. And it is because no longer are employees willing to just work for company profit. They want to know that they matter in the equation as well. And when you think about what's happening in our world right now, planet is increasingly becoming important. So we're really passionate about the triple bottom line. We help companies and their employees grow together. So we start with an assessment and giving recommendations on what we've learned through our proprietary maturity model. And then we build playbooks based on their needs. We have an academy with 16 courses ranging from the foundations of customer success through to leadership development. And we do a lot of workshops. So Sabina specializes, it's become her specialty, customer journey mapping, bringing all the silos across companies together to really understand the ideal customer personas and what is the ideal journey for companies and people and teams really to grow together. I'm sure I'm missing something we do, Sabina.
I think the key area that we thrive the most is in technology based off of our past experience. And so servicing technology companies and helping them to enable their customers to adopt the software, for them to think about revenue expansion opportunities, revenue protection and renewal opportunities. And the one that gets sometimes overlooked is celebration of moments of truth, when the customer obtains that first value, or perhaps it's something a little bit less tangible where the customer has that aha moment, right? And they're seeing their career progression because of the project that they're doing that's saving them time or money. Maybe they get an industry award. Maybe there's an acquisition the company makes. So taking that time to thank them and be authentic about that partnership together.
Do you guys look at marketing as part of your growth efforts, or is it outside of that?
I think our growth in the first year especially was very much organic and through our network and people who had worked with us in the past, going to unicorn companies like Modern Health, Aurora Solar, saying we need help. So I think it was really organic this year. And I think Sabina and I both love and value social media. You can find us on all social media outlets. We make an effort to follow, I would say, the Gary Vaynerchuk advice of post daily, share your thoughts, your learnings, be authentic in them. I think that's been really important in our marketing strategies. So I would definitely leverage that. And even when we do assessments, we do a SWOT analysis and tell our clients exactly what is the market out there looking at in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats.
SWOT analysis. So what does the next year look like for growth molecules and pressing on? Like so you have kind of like two initiatives here. Is pressing on like a marketing tactic for growth molecules, or do you feel like it's completely separate?
They're completely separate, and by design, right? I think that for it to be what it is, it's this authentic piece of work to comfort women like us when we were going through the thick
Right.
of it, right? Like in the book, I talk openly about having had a miscarriage and having to be back at work on stage presenting to 500 people with a smile on my face when
Oof.
I was emotionally devastated. I was physically in pain. It was awful. And, it's emotional to even talk about it now, but knowing that there's women that I've personally coached and mentored who had that same thing happen and confided in me, and I sent them home. I sent them to the hospital. Like I pivoted because of my own experience. We want this book to be a pivot for people to know that there are others out there going through the same things. And the way that we're going to change the narrative is to support one another. We do talk about pressing on in our daily work because we're moms working in tech. It's organic,
Right.
it's authentic. So
Yeah.
they are separate. We're really passionate about growth molecules and the work that we do there. But this is just like we mentioned, this is something that was passion project and came up before I even joined growth molecules.
Amazing. So going back to growth molecules, what type of companies do you work with?
I think it really varies. We have fractional leaders in place right now working with fast growing small companies that have maybe 10 to 20 people. So
Mm.
someone coming in, rolling in their sleeves, being with the client 2 to 3 days a week, helping with hiring, leadership, implementation of technology. And
Mhm.
then we work with other companies who know they need a customer success platform, but they don't know how to select one. They don't know what are the use cases, what are the playbooks. Help us select one and help us implement one. So we do that kind of work as well. And that varies, but typically those are mid-enterprise companies that realize we can no longer use a spreadsheet to manage our clients, or we've been using Salesforce, but we need a more proactive strategy to manage our clients and help identify growth opportunities. So how do we multi-thread? How do we see expansion? And so being able to help clients that way, that's typically at a later stage. We also work with public companies. In fact, my very first client that called me when I threw up a website that I hacked together on WordPress was Square. And they
Yeah.
hired me for a workshop, bringing in people from all over the world together to talk about their technology and breaking silos.
Mm.
I think it's the clients, we adapt to what the clients needs. We have been working with so many different companies at different stages. I've worked for both public and private. Sabina has worked with many different companies as well. And it's not just the two of us. There are 16 people that work with us now globally.
So it's almost like a fraction, like so a company might work with you to have like a fractional CEO or a fractional CFO or something like that. That's one kind of like engagement type, right?
Absolutely. That there's a
Mhm.
huge need for that, especially when you're looking for someone full time, but you don't exactly know what you need.
Mhm.
And your team really needs a leader to help them scale at the same time. That's when we come in and are very effective.
Interesting. Interesting. So, what is your focus for the rest of 2022 with growth molecules?
I think right now it's really about, well, it's twofold. One, it's scaling, putting process in place so we can bring more consultants to work under our umbrella and be able to do what Sabina and I have been doing for a long time. And
Mhm.
then two, it's making sure that we're enabling our clients to see continuous impact from our efforts. And one of the best examples is one of the clients I worked with a couple years ago. I built their playbook, acted as their chief customer officer for 3 months, and then rolled it out. Well, that was right before the pandemic. And fast forward 2 years, they were acquired. And one of their leaders called me and said, during the acquisition, we lost the playbook you built us. Can
Oof.
you please send us a copy? We really need it. And so that speaks volumes to me that our goal for this year is to do what we did last year, but better, and be able to influence, touch more companies to help them grow and retain their employees.
Yeah. So, what comes first, clients or employees?
I'm very adamant about employees. Sabina, you might.
Me too. Me
Me
too.
three.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a blog post about this because I was really passionate about it. The idea of building up your teams to build out your customer experience. That if your people aren't happy, they're not nurtured, they're not fulfilled, that comes through, even an email, written word, it comes through to the customer.
100%. 100% confidence, tribal knowledge. Just the more people are in the business for longer, the better it is for the business. Okay, so as we wrap up here, let us know the URLs for growth molecules and pressing on as a tech mom.
I'll start with growth molecules, and it's easy. It's growthmolecules.com. I'm really excited. We had our company name trademarked yesterday officially by the government after a year of going back and forth with lawyers, them telling us that the chances were very low, that it would probably be rejected and we were wasting money and we'd have to fight it. But they accepted it yesterday. So it's a big milestone for us. But it's very
Wow,
simple,
congrats.
growthmolecules.com.
Awesome.
And Sabina?
Pressingonbook.com. There you will find information about Emilia and myself. There's a guide to help women nurture their careers with information and other resources that they could follow that have enabled us. And also, of course, there's the link to Amazon and to Barnes & Noble and other retailers where the ebook and the physical book and eventually the audiobook will be available for download as well. That is being
Nice.
recorded as we speak in chunks of time because it is an interesting endeavor. I've never done an audiobook before, but we're enjoying that process too.
Are you reminding your ums and uhs and whatever
Enunciation.
enunciation?
What is it? Benjamin Cumberbatch.
Are you recording this like in your like did you mic up your whole closet and
Oh
the
yeah.
padding and all that stuff?
We have photos of it on Twitter. It's pretty funny. We both
Yeah.
took photos of our little cages that we bunked up in. And you know what? It's really hard to be reading your own text for 90 minutes at a time. You suddenly can't speak anymore. But
Yeah.
one of our clients wrote this beautiful piece about having not being able to see and having to constantly be available for your team, being hidden by your vision, for example,
Hmm.
holding you back. And so when we were thinking about, well, how will we publish this book? I said, Sabina, we have to record the book as well. We want to make it accessible for people who can't read as well.
And I
Awesome.
thought she meant hiring voice actors. Little did I
Yeah.
know best practice for authentic business / self-help book like this was to do it yourself. So we do alternate
100%.
the chapters that we each wrote. Yeah, it's been a fun journey. A lot of
Yeah,
learning.
I definitely like listening to audiobooks when it's the author narrating it or speaking it. All right, Emilia Dianzica, Sabina Pons, authors of Pressing On as a Tech Mom and Principles of Growth Molecules. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having us, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.